So you want to learn Remix.run V2, but you don't know where to start? Well, you have come to the right video, since today you will learn the basics of Remix and the whole V2 convention, and we will build a really cool project, a movie API project, where you will learn how routing works, how fetching works, how mutations work, and everything that Remix provides for us. So let's see the demo and let's go. Right here on my screen you will see right now what we will build today. So we have this cool little trending movies application where you can click on each movie. So let me click on the flash. You will see we get redirected to the page or a little description page of the flash. We have a link, an original language, the overview, and a release date. And the cool thing I can do right here is share an opinion. So I can say, hey, that movie is so cool. And then I can click on add comment, and you will see that Remix revalidates our loader, so we get the fresh data right here. So I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial, and now we can get started. So to get started, I will go to the Remix.run website, and I would highly suggest you guys to go and read through this website, since I think it's very informative and you will learn a lot about Remix, the core infrastructure of Remix, and the whole philosophy around Remix. So to now get started, what I will do is click read the docs. And right here, the first thing you will see is pretty much the command to initialize a new Remix application. So what I will do is just copy this command right here and go back to my terminal. Now inside of my terminal, I will cd into my desktop directory and cd into my YouTube directory, and I will just paste the command. Now right now you will see that Remix will ask us a few questions, and the first question is, how do we want to name our application? I will just name it right now Remix tutorial, but you of course can name it however you want. Now for the part of what type of application you want to create, we'll use just the basics. But you can also use a pre-configured stack. There are multiple, like the blue stack or the grunge stack. Those are already stacks that are pre-configured with auth and styling and deployment, so everything is already pre-configured. But for us, since we will learn the basics today, we'll just click just the basics. And as a deployment target, I will choose Vercel. But if you want to use something different, I can also highly suggest you guys to use fly.io. But Vercel will be much easier and much quicker, so I will use that. Now we will of course also use TypeScript, so let's click that, and now let's click install. Now this installation will take about a minute, and once that's done, I will come back to you. So Remix is now done installing, and I will now go back to my Visual Studio Code and open the project. And if you want to do the same, just go right here on top on File and click on Open Folder. And now the first thing you will see is on the right side the project structure. And let's just start from the bottom. The first thing you will have is the tsconfig, and that's pretty standard for a TypeScript application. I don't think I have to explain it any further. Now the server.ts file is an Vercel file. It's not really needed actually. You can delete it, since in the latest release of the Vercel or the Remix.run Vercel package, the server.ts file is not more needed, and you can also pretty much deploy your application without that. Now the next file which is interesting for us is the remix.config.js, and this file is pretty much used to configure your Remix application. And right here you see one flag is the future flag, and in here you can pretty much configure which V2 convention you want to use in your application. And as you see, those are the default pretty much configurations Remix ships with, but you can also add your own configuration. So for example, Remix recently released their dev server. So in the past in Remix V1, you always had to pretty much use the I will just say normal server, where every time you made a change, the whole website pretty much refreshed, and we didn't have any HMR. But in the latest pretty much V2 Remix, we now have HMR, and if you want to use it, since we will use it in today's video, all you have to do is write unstable dev, which will be just true. And with that, you pretty much tell Remix that you want to use this new server, the faster HMR server, and not the old server. And also what I want to say is that the dev server is currently not stable, so that's why it also has an unstable flag. But in my opinion, it works good enough. Sure, there are some problems here and there, but I definitely think you can live with them. And this unstable dev is pretty much getting better every week and with every release. So that looks good, and now you understand what this remix config means. We can now continue, and you see the next file is pretty much the package.json and the package log.json. So that's just our packages and the logged packages. I think that's nothing new. And the next interesting folder is the public folder, and inside of there are pretty much all static assets. So right here you see the fav icon, but in here you also pretty much store your images and everything like that. So everything that is public and static. And then the next folder, which is pretty much the most important folder inside of your Remix application, and that's the app folder. And inside of here, let's start from the bottom with the root.tsx. Now the root.tsx is pretty much the base layer of your application. And to think better of it, let me go to the Remix.run website, and you will see right here with this great example what the root is actually. So example.com is the root of your application, and everything is being rendered, if I scroll down a bit, inside of this root. So right here you see the sales pretty much parent route of invoices, and this sales route is rendered inside of our root application. So if I go back, that's our root.tsx, and everything, so every route inside of this routes folder will be pretty much rendered inside of this root.tsx. And to be more exact, you will right here see the outlet. And every route is pretty much rendered inside of this outlet. And right here, these other functions, they are not really important for us. Since we won't change anything, we'll just leave it as it is. Another interesting thing right here is the links function. And with the links function, you can pretty much import style sheets, and Remix will bundle them for us. So at a later stage, we will, for example, use tailwindcss. And then with the links function, we can pretty much tell Remix to please use the tailwindcss or the global CSS inside of our root.tsx, so inside of our application. So yeah, that's all you need to know for root.tsx. And now the other two routes you will see is the entry.client and the entry.server. And that's already pretty much self-explanatory. So the one route, so entry.server, is the entry point for our application, and the entry.client is pretty much our entry point for the whole, for our browser and for the hydration. You won't really use it. I personally have never changed anything inside of here, and I don't really think you will do. So it's not important what is inside of here. All you need to know is that one is the entry for the client and for the browser, and the other one is pretty much for our application and the server code. So that's pretty much done. And now we will come to pretty much the most important folder, and that's the routes folder. Inside of the routes folder, we will have all the routes. So the index page, for example, and services page, or an hello route. So all of your routes will be stored inside of the routes folder. And right here we have our index.tsx. It's always there. It's pretty much your index site. And that's also the default template Remix ships with right here. And the most interesting thing right here is pretty much your meta function. So inside of here, you can store all of your meta tags, so the title, the description, and your OG images and everything like that. And to actually see our meta function, let me just start my dev server. So I will do npm run dev. This will now start our dev server on localhost 3000. So let me open that right now. You will now see right here on the top, that's our meta function. So right here, the name or the title is new Remix app. And now let me just change it. We will just change the title to Remix Tutorial 2023. If I save that and go back, you'll now see that the title changes and we have a new meta title. We can also change the description. So I will just write, welcome to my tutorial. If I now save that and go back to my application, and I will now just open the Chrome Developer tab right here. And right here, if I open now the head, you will see inside of the head our meta description with the name welcome to my tutorial. So that's how you pretty much set up all of your meta tags, your title. Also, you can set up your OG images, but I won't discuss that any further since we will not really need that or use that. And right now you will see right here we have an export default. And let's say I will just do function index. If I save that and now go back and let me reload it, you will see we get an error. And why do we have this error? That's because if we want to use this route as an UI route, we will have to always do an export default. So I will do that again, and you will see if I save that and go back, the whole error will go away and we now see our UI route. So remember, if you want to show an UI route, you will always have to do an export default. So I hope you understand that. And now let's say we want to create a child route. So right now we have our index, which is localhost 3000. But what if we want to have a localhost 3000 slash, let's say, pricing or slash hello? So we want to have a child route. How do we do that? All we have to do is pretty much go inside of the routes folder and create a new file. So I will just name it hello, actually, .tsx. And now to make this route work, all you have to do is an export default. So I will do an export default function. Let's give it a name of hello. And now let me open this function. Inside of here, I have now to return something. So I will just return and div. And inside of here, I will have an h1 tag. And I will just say hello from the hello route, something like that. If I now save that and go inside of my URL right here and do an slash hello, you will see we have now the hello route with the h1 with hello from the hello route. So if you want to create pretty much new routes, so everything after this index, so localhost 3000, all you have to do is pretty much create a new file inside of the routes.tsx, and this will pretty much propagate to the slash or to the slash after localhost 3000. And let's just do another example. And for the routes, let's create another route with by.tsx. I will again have to do an export default function, which will be by. And right here, I will have to return something again. And I will just do div h1 and let's say by from this route. So something like that. I know that makes no sense, but if I now change it to slash by, you will see we have now this route. So that's pretty much the simple way of creating routes. But now what if I want to use hello as a parent route? What I can do actually is right here, rename it. So let me click rename. And what I can do is hello dot, let's say 1.tsx. If I now save that, and I will just say hello from the, let's say hello plus 1 route. Let me save that and let's go right here. And if I now type just hello, you'll see we'll get an 4 not found. And that's because such an URL does not exist anymore. What we have now is an hello slash 1. That's now the new route we have created, where hello is our parent and 1 is our child. So that's pretty much the overview. So this point, all it does is pretty much create the slash right here, if you can see that. So the slash between hello and 1, that's pretty much represented by this 1. Also, this dot pretty much tells Remix that we want to create nested routing. So let me show you nested routing. What I will do now actually is delete both files, so hello and the spy route. Let me do that. And what I will do now actually is go into the routes folder and I will create a dashboard.tsx, and inside of this dashboard.tsx I will do again an export default function, which will just be dashboard. And now let me open that function and let me just return div and let's say an h1 tag of hello from the dashboard layout. Now why is it a layout? So if I now create a new route, and this will be the dashboard._index.tsx. So now the dashboard is pretty much our UI or our layout route, and this dashboard.index.tsx is pretty much the index page of the dashboard. So let me show it to you. Right here in the dashboard index page, I will do again an export default function of dashboard index. And right here, let me open that function and let's do a return statement. I will do an just let's say h1 and say hello from the index page. And right now, if I would save that and just write dashboard, so let me do that, you will right here see hello from the dashboard layout. But that's not what I wanted. What I wanted to do is show right here this index page. So why does it show me the layout page? To make it work so that we have the dashboard as a layout and the dashboard index as our index page, you have to add the outlet, since the outlet pretty much renders your child routes. So what I will do is under the h1, I will pretty much use the outlet, which I import from Remix.run React, and this will be now self-closing. If I now go back, you will now see right here we have our layout, and then we have our index page. So pretty much right now we have nested routing. So we have our dashboard, which acts as a layout route, and it pretty much has this outlet, and the outlet pretty much renders all of the child routes. So right now it pretty much renders the index page. And to make another example, I will create another route, again, dashboard, and I will do a dashboard dot, let's say, sales.tsx. Inside of here, let's do again an export default function, and let's name it sales dashboard, and let me open that function, and inside of here I will return an h1 and say this is the sales dashboard child route. This should be under the layout, something like that. If I now save that and go back, and I will pretty much change the route to dashboard/sales, you will still see we have the layout route right here, but our child route has changed. So we aren't anymore on the index page, but we are now inside of the sales route. So that's pretty much the overview to layouts. So we always just pretty much create our routes right here. And then we have our dashboard._index and we have our dashboard.tsx. And the dashboard.tsx pretty much acts as our layout route. And to make the layouts work, you will always have to use the outlet. And if you don't use it, the whole layout functions or the whole layout routes actually don't work. So keep that in mind and do it like that. Now the next route we will do is pretty much create a dynamic value. So I will create another route. Inside of the routes folder, I will do a dashboard, and let's do a dashboard.$id.tsx. Let's do again an export default function. I will just name it dashboard ID, and let's open that function. Inside of here I can now return something, so I will do a return h1, and let's say hello from the ID page. And now the interesting thing is with the $, that's pretty much a dynamic value. So our route pretty much looks like that right now. We have our local, let's spell localhost correctly, 3000, and then we have a slash. And localhost 3000 is right now our root route. And after that we have then the slash dashboard, which right here is our UI or our layout route. And then we have this $. And all this $sign tells us is that it can be a dynamic value. So the dynamic value can be just a number or hello or how are you. It can be anything. It can be dynamic. And I can get this value through the params. So what I can do right now inside of this function is do a const ID and with the structure ID right here. And this will be equal to use params, which I import from Remix.run React. So what I can do right now is pretty much show our ID page inside of the h1. Let me save that. And now if I go to localhost 3000, I will change this sales child to, let's say, hello. And what you will now see is hello from the ID page hello. Or let me change this hello to 5565. You'll now see our ID page changes to that. So all the $sign tells us is that the route is dynamic and it can change. And we can get this dynamic value through the useParams function. So that's pretty much how you create remix routes, how you create layout routes, and how you create nested routing, how you create dynamic values. So I think we are actually now done with that. And you now know everything that we need to create an application. And I think it's now time to create this application. So what I will do is delete everything inside of here. So all new routes we have created. So dashboard. So let me click delete. Let me also delete this right here. Let me delete this dashboard sales. And let me delete dashboard.tsx. So now we are again back where we have started. We only have our index page. We have our root.tsx. We have our entry client, and our index.tsx. And now you have an overview of how Remix works. So now let's get started. To get started, let's go to the tailwindcss website, and inside of here click on the docs and then go to framework guides and scroll down to Remix. Right here tailwindcss provides us with a quick start guide, and as you see, the step 1 we have already done that, and that's to install Remix or to create a new application in that sense. So we can continue with step 2, which is to enable built-in Tailwind CSS support. And to do that, I will go to the remix.config.js, and inside of the modules.export, I will just set the flag of Tailwind to true. Now, this will pretty much tell Remix that I want to use Tailwind, and it should do pretty much all of this bundling magic for me. Now, if I go back to the Tailwind CSS website, you will see that the next step is to install Tailwind CSS. So let me copy this command, let me go to my terminal, let me stop my dev server, and let me just paste the command right here. Now this will install Tailwind CSS, and for now let's go back to the website and see what the next step is. And you will see the next step is to configure our template paths. So I will just copy this content path right here, and now you will see everything has been installed. I can now go to tailwind.config.ts and just delete this old content path and paste the new content path that I have just copied. Now we can go back to Tailwind CSS, and you will see the next step is to add our Tailwind CSS directives. So let me copy them, and now I will go inside of our app folder and create a new file called tailwind.css. Inside of here, let me just paste that, and let's go back. You will now see that the next step is to import the CSS file inside of our root.tsx. So I will copy that. Now let me go to root.tsx. So what I will do right here is just delete this old links function and let me paste the new one. And this links function, pretty much all it does, it tells, as I already explained, it tells Remix that I want to pretty much use the style sheet and that it should bundle it for us. So now if we go back, you will see that the last step is to start the build process. And the build process, all it does is pretty much starts the dev server. So I actually think we can do that. I will now go back again to our terminal, and what I will do is an npm run dev. And now if I again close the terminal and go back to localhost 3000, and let's go to the index route, you will now see that the style has changed a bit. That's because the Tailwind CSS styling now works. To test it out, let's go to the _index.tsx. I will delete everything inside of this return statement, and let's just do a div with an h1 of hello from the index. And if I save that and go back, you will now see hello from the index. And you see that's misspelled, but that's not important for us. And now the first thing I will actually want to do is pretty much create a navbar. And this navbar will be a layout, since the navbar will always be there on the top. So what I will do for that is go to the root.tsx. I will create a new function called layout. And inside of here, let me open that. Inside of here, let's do a return statement. I will use empty brackets, and inside of them, I will create a new nav. Let me style that nav, so I will give it a class name of padding x of 10 and padding top of 5. Now inside of here, let me use the link, and the link is pretty much a function Remix provides with us, which we have to import, as you see right here, from Remix.run React. And that's pretty much the equivalent to, for example, the next.js link, or actually also just the A tag. Since the link is just an A tag, you can say on steroids. And it adds a few benefits like prefetching, etc. But I will come to that in a second. And right here, you will see that right now we get an error, and that's because we are missing the to prop. And the to prop is pretty much the same to the href if you use the normal a tag, and it tells us, or it tells Remix, where we want to link to. So right here, let me do a to, and the to will just be the index route, so I will just use the slash. Another thing I will do right here is use the prefetch, and it gives us 3 values, which is intent, none, and render. And prefetch is pretty interesting, since if I use, for example, intent, if Remix pretty much sees that I have an intent to click on the link, so if I hover over the link, Remix will fetch the data inside of the background, and if I click on it, or on the route, you will see that the redirect will be pretty much almost instant, since all the data has already been prefetched in the background. So that's what we will use. We will use intent, But another value you could use is, for example, the render, and this will just automatically fetch everything in the background. But I don't want to do that since that's just too much bandwidth, and I don't know if the user will actually click on the link. So that's why I use intent, and let me also style it. So let me give it a class name of text will be 2XL, and we will have a font of semi-bold. In the link, let me just write movie, and let me give it in span, and in the span I will just write db. Let me also style that span, so I will give it a class name of text till 500. Now if I save that and go back to localhost, you will still see nothing, and that's because we haven't linked it anywhere. To do that, what you have to do is actually wrap the outlet and the live reload inside of our layout. So what I will do is just copy our outlet till our live reload, and now let me wrap that inside of our layout. So just like that. And right now pretty much TypeScript will complain, and that's because we have to render our children, because as you know, the outlet renders all of the children and all of the routes. So what I have to do is pretty much destructure our children inside of the layout function, so like that. And now TypeScript complains since it does not know what type children are, and children are of type React Node. So let me give it a type of React Node, which is imported from React. And now to make it work, I will have to give it under the nav. Let's do a main element and just paste the children inside of here. So now if I go back, you will now see our nav bar, and that works perfectly. And what I will want to do now, I think, is actually style our index page. So let's do that. I will now go to underscore index.tsx, and right here in the return statement, let me just delete everything, and let me create inside of here a new div. Let me style it, so I will give it a class name of bg white, py will be 6, sm will be of py 8, then we'll have an lg of py 12. Inside of this div I will create another div, and let me style it, so I will give it a class name of mx auto, max width will be screen 2xl, and then we'll also have an px of 4 and an md of px of 8. Inside of here I will create another div, and let me style it, so I will give it a class name of margin bottom of 10 and an md of margin bottom 16. And inside of here I will create an h2 tag, and I will just do a top trending movies. So that's pretty much a title. Now let me also style that h2 tag, so I will give it a few class names. So let's do class name of margin bottom 4. We'll have a text which will be center. Then we'll have a text which will be 2XL, font will be bold, and text will be gray 800, and we'll have a medium of margin bottom 6 and an LG of text 3XL. Now that looks good, and if I now go back, you'll right here see our title of top trending movies. So that looks good. And now under the h2 tag and under the div tag, let me create another div tag. And inside of this div tag, I will pretty much map over our movies right here. And that's what I will do right now. So I will create pretty much a grid where we have 4 movies at a time. And yeah, let's do that. So let me give it a class name, which will have a grid. Gap will be 4. SM will be grid calls of 2. We'll have a medium of gap of 6. LG will be grid calls 3. And we will have an XL, which will be grid calls of 4. Then we will also have another style which will be XL gap of 8. So inside of this div I will now pretty much map over our movies and show them then to the user. So what we will do is go to the movie database, and the movie database is pretty much as it says a database of movies, and they also have a great API which we will use. And if you don't have an account, just go right here and create a new account. But I already have an account, so what I will do is click on settings, and then let me scroll down to API, and let's click on regenerate a key, enter your password inside of here. This will disable your old API key. I'm fine with that, so I will click confirm, and right here you will now have your API read access token. So that's great, and what I will do now is actually let me copy this read access token, and let's go to the movie database docs. I clicked on API reference, and now right here you have a tab which is called trending, and this has a movie tab. Let me click on it. And now you will now see we can fetch pretty much the top movies right now, or the trending movies. And what I will click right here is on Node.js, and let me add my authorization key, so my API key. If I now click on try it, and this will pretty much show us the successful response and all the data we get. And also right here in the request, it pretty much shows us how to make this fetch request. But before we do anything, let me go back to our application and let's talk a bit about how we actually load data. Now, if you didn't know, Remix has a very cool convention of loaders. So if you want to get data, you use a loader, and pretty much all you do inside of this loader is fetch the data, and then through a handy hook of use loader data, you can get the data inside of your front end. So what I think to do, I will just show it to you, and I think you will understand it even better. So what you will have to do is export an async function. So let's do that. And you will have to give it a name, which will be loader. And inside of here, I will give it a loader args. And now let me open the function. And now inside of here, I can pretty much do all of my fetching and then just return it. So what I will do right now is just copy this const URL, which they have provided right here, and let me paste it inside of here. And since I want to fetch it, let me write right here, await, fetch, and let me wrap this whole URL inside of this fetch. So that looks good. But now if I go back, you will still see we have a few options. So we have headers with the accept and the authorization. So I will just copy this headers right here. And right here, let me open a new object and just paste it inside of here. So that looks good. So inside of here, we have accept application JSON, and we have our API key inside of here. And right here, you will see we pretty much show our API key, and that's okay since the loader only runs on the server and it's not shown to the client. So any malicious user can never get access to the API key since it only runs on the server. And now we pretty much fetch the data, but we also have to return that. So what I will do right here is just do an return JSON, and JSON is imported from Remix.run Node. And inside of here, I will just do an await url.json. And all what JSON does is pretty much, if you go to the docs right here, JSON is just a shortcut for creating application/JSON responses. So instead of doing all of this right here with the headers of content type, you only have to do an return JSON. So yeah, I hope you understand that. And now we do this fetch request, but we also have to get it inside of the front end. So what you will do right here is just do an const data, and this will be equal to use loader data. And if I now console log that, so I will do an console.log data, and let's save that. If I now go back to our website and open the console, you will now see that we get right here our data. So we have an object, and right here we have our results of the multiple movies, the title, the ID, etc. So that's all you have to do. You have to export an async function, which is a loader, and the loader is pretty much just a GET request to an API or to your Prisma or to your database, whatever you want to do. So loader is just pretty much a GET request. And then you pretty much get the data that you fetch inside of this loader with your use loader data hook, and that's all you need to do actually. So now we are done. We get our data. That's perfect. And now we can actually map over it. So inside of this div, what I will do is an data.results. Since if I go back, we right here have an object. And if I open the object, we have this results. And inside of the results, we have an array of our multiple movies. So that's why I do an data.results.map. Inside of here, I get a movie. And now let me just return that. So now movie right here, or TypeScript actually complains, and that's because it does not know what type we have. And I actually also don't know the types, or I know the types, but I don't want to add them all. So I will just do a movie of type any, since that's not really important for us right now. And inside of here, I will now create a new div, and let me style that. So I will give it a class name of flex call. Overflow will be hidden. We'll have an rounded, which will be LG, an border, and an BG of white. Now inside of this div, I will create a link, and I will import that link from Remix.run React. And now pretty much Remix or TypeScript again complains. and that's because we have to add the to prop, and the to prop will be dynamic, so I will use upticks, and it will be movie slash, and let's use the dynamic value of movie.id, and let's give it also in slash comments. You'll see later why I use the slash comments, but for now just do that and you'll see it later. And now inside of here I will also actually use some prefetch, so let me add a prefetch, and this will be again an intent, since what I want to do is if the user hovers over our link, I want to pretty much prefetch the data of this movie in the background, and if the user clicks on this link, then the redirect will be pretty much instant. And now let me also add a class name, which will be of group. We'll have a relative, block, age will be 48, overflow will be hidden. We'll also have an VG of gray 100, and medium will be height of 64. Now inside of this link, I will create an image tag. And now for the source, that's pretty interesting, since we don't have any response, or inside of the response we don't have any image URL, and that's because the movie database has pretty much its own convention. So if you search for the movie database image URL, you will pretty much see this website right here, and this will be also linked in my GitHub, so you don't have to search for it. And it pretty much tells you that this is pretty much the base URL. You have your image database.org/t/p, and then you can pretty much set your width, or you can set it as original. So what we will do is right here just copy this. Let me do that. I will go back, and for the source, let me use upticks inside of here, since this will be dynamic. And now you have this URL right here, but right here at the end you see they have added their own ID, so let me delete that right here. And right here now I will give pretty much my own ID, so let's add the dynamic value of movie.poster_path. If I now save that and go back to localhost 3000, and let me close the console, you will now see our images right here, and our grid is pretty much working. So that's great. Yeah. So now let me also add a class name to the image. So let's do a class name, which will be absolute. We'll have an inset, which will be 0. Age will be full, width will be full. Object will be cover. We will have an object, which will be of type center. Then we will also have a transition. We will have a duration, which will be 200, and we will have a group hover, which will be scale of, let's say, 110. And if I now save that, and let's go back again, you will now see if I hover over this image, we right here get pretty much the scale in. So that looks good in my opinion, and we can now continue. Now one thing I don't like right now is right here we should actually have pretty much rounded corners. So let me check where the error is. So we have in flex call, and overflow hidden is misspelled. So let me spell overflow correctly, and if I save that and go back, we now have this borders, and that looks way better. What I want to do now is go under the link and create a new dev element, and let me style it. So I will give it a class name of flex, flex-1, flex will be call, padding will be 4, and sm will be padding of 6. Then also let's create an h2 tag. So let me give it a class name of margin bottom of 2. Text will be large, font will be semi-bold, and we will have a text which will be gray of 800. Also maybe let me create a link inside of here. So let's do a link. And inside of here I will again have to give it a to prop. So the 2 will actually be the same. So I will copy it from here and let me paste it inside of here. And then I will again also use the prefetch, which will be an intent. And now let me also give it a class name of transition. We will have a duration, which will be 100, and hover, which will be of text indigo 500, and an active, which will be of text indigo 600. Now inside of here I want to pretty much show the movie title. So let me do that. We will have a movie.title. So that looks good. If I now save that and go back, you'll right now see pretty much our image and our title. So that looks good in my opinion. But another thing I want to do is add a little overview, so a little description of the movie. So under the link and under the h2 tag, Let me create an p tag, let me style it, so let's give it a text of gray 500, and inside of here we'll just have the movie.overview. Now if I save that and go back, you will see we will have a gigantic description, which I don't like, it's way too long. So let's use a line clamp right here. Let's use line, clamp, and let's say 3. If I now save that, you will see the description is only 3 lines long, and that looks way better in my opinion. So we are now finished, I think, with the index route, and we can now pretty much continue with the next route, which will be pretty much the description or the full page of the movie. So let's do that. So to do that, you will again go inside of the app folder and inside of the routes folder, and let's create a new file called movie.$id.tsx. And inside of here we have now to export default it, since we want to use it as an UI route. So let's do an export default function, which will just be movie ID, and let me open that function. And inside of here, let me just do a return. Let's do a div of h1 hello from the ID. So that looks good. And if I now go back to localhost 3000 and let me just click on right here the flash, you will see right here 404 not found. And that's because we haven't created this comments route. So let me just delete that right here. And if I save it now, you will see an hello from the ID. So that looks good. So what I will now do is actually, first of all, I think I want to load the data for the movie. So let me again go to the movie database docs. So I'm now on the movie database docs, and I again open the API reference and I search for the movies tab and for the details tab. And right here what you will see is that we have to give it a movie ID, and then we can fetch the details for this movie ID. So if I go back to localhost 3000, you will see that the ID for the flash is this one right here. So I will copy that and let me just add it right here inside of the movie ID. If I now click on try it, so to fetch the data, you will see the resource could not be requested, and that's because I added a slash right here. Now if I do that again, it should work now. And now you see we pretty much get the details for the movie right here. So that works great. And what I will do now is actually again click right here node, and let me just copy this URL right here. Now let me go back to Visual Studio Code, and right here I will again use a loader function, since I want to use a get request to load that data. So let's do an export async function, which will be of type loader, and right here we'll again use a loader args. And now let me just open the function. Now inside of this loader args, I get pretty much the params inside of here, and with the params I can get the ID of the movie. So right here I will now paste just this const URL that we have copied, and you will see that the URL is again just the API, the movie database, and right here we search for this movie ID. And I want to use a dynamic value from our params. So first of all, let me change that from the normal string to the upticks on both sides. Let's do that. And what I will do now is delete this ID and use our dynamic params. So what I will do right here is just params.id. And if I save that right now, what I will also have to do is of course fetch it. So let's do an await, fetch, and let me wrap this whole URL inside of here. And also we'll have to add our API key. So let me go back and let me just copy this headers. And right here, let me add a comma, open a new object and paste these headers. So that looks good. And now let me also return that. So let's do a return JSON, which I import from Remix.run node. And inside of here, let's do an await url.json. Now I will again have to get the data inside of the front end. So what I will do again is a const data, which will be equal to use loader data, which I import from Remix.run React. And now I will get the data inside of our front end. To check it, let's again just do a console log. So I will do console.log data. Now let me save that and again open localhost 3000. And if I open now pretty much our console and let me reload it again, you'll right here see that we get the data. So we get our pretty much the budget, the ID, the original language, the title, and everything like that. So that works, and now we pretty much get the data for our movie. So now let's continue with the UI route. So inside of the div, let's style that. Let's give it a class name of min age of screen, and padding will be 10. Now let me delete this h1 tag since I won't need that, and let's use an image tag. And right here again we will have to use the image. So what I will do is let's go to the index.tsx, and right here let me copy everything just before this dynamic value of the poster path. So let's do that. I will go back right here. Let's again use upticks and I will paste that. And what I want to do right here is right now not use the width 500, but I want to use the original image without any cropping. And after that, let's again use a dynamic value of data.backdrop_path. And now let me also style that image. So let's give it a class name of h minus, let's do an 40 viewport height. And if you use these array brackets, you can add your custom pretty much values. So you can also use pixels or anything you want actually. And then the next style will be the object, which will be cover. We'll also have a width full and rounded will be LG. If I now save that and go back, you will right here see an error. And that's because I probably misspelled something. So let me go back. And I already see the error. I misspelled original. So let me fix that. And now I think I spelled that correctly. Let's go back. And yeah, now the image loads perfectly. And that looks very good in my opinion. So now we can continue. So under the image tag, I will create an h1 tag. And let me also style it. So let's give it a class name of text will be 4XL. Font will be bold. We'll have a text which will be center and a padding top of 5. And inside of here, I will just get the data.title. And let me save that and go again. And let's go back. And now we see our image and the title of the movie. So that looks good. And what I want to do now is under the h1 tag, let's create a div tag. And let me style that. So I will give it a class name of flex. And gap will be x of 10. And we'll have a margin top of 10. So that looks good. And inside of here, let me create another div. And let's give it a class name of width will be 1/2. And we'll have font, which will be medium. And now inside of here, this will pretty much be on the left side. We will get a little overview of the image. So pretty much the language, the URL of the film. So for example, to the Netflix URL, we'll also pretty much get the release date and a small overview. So let's do that. So inside of this div, let me create an h1. And inside of here, let me create a span. And inside of the span, I will just write home page with a colon. And let me also style the span. Let's give it a class name of underline. And now after the span, I want to get pretty much the link to the home page. So let's do a link right here, which I import again from Remix.run React. And I will give it a toProp. And the toProp will just be the data.homepage. We'll also use a target, which will be _blank. Since if the user clicks on the link, I want a link to open in a new tab and not on the same window or in the same tab. And then let me also pretty much right here give it the link, or not the link, I want to give it a name of just link. And now if I save that right here and go back, you'll now see our home page with the link. And if I click that, it opens in a new tab, and that's pretty much the website of the movie. So that looks good. We can now continue. So under this h1 tag, I will create another h1 tag. And also right now, right here, you probably shouldn't use h1 tags. Since that's not really a title. But since this is not any SEO course or anything like that, I don't really care about that. So I just use whatever I want. But of course, if that would be in a real application, you wouldn't really use any h1 tags. You would probably use something like a p tag or something like that. So just that you know that. So now under this h1 tag, I will create pretty much another h1 tag. And right here, I want to show the original language of the movie. So let me again create a span inside of here. And I will write original, or let me spell that correctly, original language. And right here, I will again give it a class name of just underline. And after the span, I will again just give it the data.original_language. And if I save that and go back, you will now see our home page and our original language which is English. Also, let me use a colon right here, so language colon. So that looks good. Now under the h1 tag, I will create an p tag, and I will again give it a span, and inside of here I will just do an overview colon, and let's give it also a class name. So the class name will again just be underline, and for the data right here, I will just do a data.overview. Let's save that, and if I go back, you will now see our overview with a small description. And now pretty much the last thing I want is the release date. So under the p tag, I will create another p tag, and let's create again a span inside of here. Let's give it a class name of underline, and right here I will just write release date, and let's give it a colon. And now after the span and so inside of the p tag, I will just use the data.release_date. And if I save that and go back, you will now see everything works. We have the home page, we have the original language, we have the overview, and we have the release date. So in my opinion, that looks great. Now one cool thing I want to test out, if I now open the network tab right here, and if I hover over our MoveDB, and let me do that, you'll right here see we have pretty much our prefetch. So it pretty much registered that I have an intent, so I hovered over our logo, and it has prefetched the data inside of the background. And if I now click on our pretty much link or on our logo, you will see that the redirect is pretty much instant, and everything is loaded right in a second. And if you right now see if I hover over anything right here, you will see nothing gets pretty much prefetched, and that's because if I click on it, we have an error since we don't have any loader data. And that's because we don't have the route of comments. And now let's come to this problem. So what do I want to create actually? So right now you see right here that we have on the left side all the data, but on the right side I want to pretty much create a comments field where users can comment on the movies. So pretty much what they think about it and etc. And to do that I will actually use Prisma and Planet Scale. So let's start off with creating our Prisma schema. Now to do that, I will again open our terminal. Let me stop the dev server. Let me clear everything. And right here, let me first install Prisma. So let's do an npm I Prisma, and this will be dash dash save dash dev. And now let me click enter, and this will now install Prisma as a dev dependency. And we will need one more package actually to make Prisma work, and that's the Prisma client. So what I will do is an npm I add Prisma/client. And this is pretty much the client to pretty much make all of our queries work with our database. So Prisma client has now done installing, but we will need actually right now also our database. So to do that, I will now go to the PlanetScale website, and PlanetScale is just a database provider, and to be more specific, they provide a MySQL platform with Vitess, and Vitess is pretty much enabled to scale the platform pretty much endlessly. And I think they're pretty much also the easiest to use, but you of course can also use Supabase, for example, with Postgres or any other provider. But I will use PlanetScale, so I will just click sign in pretty much right here, and now it will redirect us to pretty much the dashboard. And right here, let me click on create a new database. Let me give it a name of Remix tutorial, and for the region I will just use Frankfurt since that's the nearest to me, but you just choose the one that's nearest to you. And now let me click create database. This will now pretty much create a database, and while that's being done, let's go back to our terminal and let's pretty much initialize Prisma. So let's do an npx Prisma init, and this will pretty much initialize Prisma and also an default schema, or in that sense an empty schema. And right here you will now see inside of our Explorer, it has created the Prisma folder with our schema, which is currently just empty. And also we have the .env, and inside of here we have to add our database URL. So let's go back to PlanetScale, and as you see that we are pretty much done with creating our database, and you can click on get connection strings. Let me do that. Let's click on create password, and right here you will now get our env. So I will copy that. let me delete this old database URL and I will just paste this one right here. Right here you will also see a tab which is schema.prisma, and that's right here pretty much a planet scale thing. If you, for example, use Supabase with Postgres, you won't have to do anything. So I will just copy that, and now let me go again to the schema.prisma and let me delete everything and paste what I've just copied. So now Prisma and our database are initialized, and now we have to create a schema. And what I will do is pretty much create a new model, and this model will just be the comment model in which I will store each comment for each movie. So let's do a model which will have the name of comment, and right here we'll now have to define our fields. And one field you will always have to give is the ID field. So let's do an ID of string. This will be an @ID, @default, and default just will be the UUID. Now I will also want to have a message, and the message will be of type string, and I will want to have a movie ID, which will be string, and let's do also an created which will just be date, time, @default, which will be now. Now that looks good. Let me also push that. So let's do an npx prisma db push, and this will just push the schema to our planet scale database, and now our planet scale database and our schema are in sync. And one thing I will also have to do is actually create a Prisma client. And to do that, what I always do is just go to the Remix.run docs and copy this right here. What you will do is just go to my GitHub README and copy inside of the utils folder, inside of the db.server.ts, this file. And so all this file does is pretty much check if we are in the dev environment, and if we are in the dev environment, it creates a global Prisma client. So let me copy that, and again, if you want to follow, just go to my GitHub and copy it from there. And what I will do now is go into the app folder, and I will create a new folder called utils, and inside of here I will create a file called db.server.ts. And now that's again a new thing. So now I have used a pretty special keyword called server. And what does that mean? Server pretty much tells Remix that the code should only run on the server and never on the client. And since Prisma is something very sensitive, since it is pretty much connected to my database, and I never want to show that on the client and a secret or anything, I only want to run that on the server. So that's why it's really important for me to always be sure that it only runs on the server. So that's why Remix has implemented the server keyword. So we pretty much tell Remix to only let it run on the server, never on the client. And with this, I'm pretty much safe. So now I hope you understand that. We have now created our schema and our Prisma client, and we can now actually continue. And now let me go to the movie ID route. So right here. Now, if you can remember, if I go back, I wanted to pretty much create it on the right side, a comment section. And since we use Remix, I want to use nested routing. And also, if you can remember, if I go back to our index page, now it failed to fetch since I have to restart our server. So I will do an npm run dev. This will now restart our dev server. And now let me reload the page. And let me come back to what I wanted to say. If I now again click on any movie, so the flash, you will see we get an error. And that's because I get redirected to the movie ID and then to a route comments. But I haven't created this route, and that's because I want to use again nested routing. So let me show it again to you, and you will understand it way better. So under the p tag and under the div tag, let me create another div, and let me give it a class name, and this will just be w of 1/2, so 50%. And inside of here, I will just use the outlet again. And this outlet pretty much ensures that I can render this comments child route. So what I will do now is again go inside of my routes folder, and let's create a new file called movie.$id.comments.tsx. And inside of here, let me start off with export default function, and let's just name it comments. Let me also open that function. And let me just return pretty much an h1 with hello. And if I now save that, and if I reload the page, you will see we get no error now, and we get this hello right here. And that's because nested routing works. So if I go back to the movie.id, you you see we use this outlet. In this outlet renders this comments route. So that's pretty much nested routing. I think that's really cool. And now pretty much the cool thing with nested routing is, and also Remix, you could right here use an error boundary. And let's say if this comments section would get an error, we would still see right here all this left text, and on the right side we would just get an error. But in this video I won't talk about the error boundary, or actually I won't implement it. But if you want to learn more, just check out the docs, and that's a great thing to have. But what I want to do now is actually create the comments, so let's do that. What I will do right now is go back here, and let's go into the movie ID comments. Let me delete this return, and I will create a new return. So I will do a return, and let's give it a div, and let me also style that. So I will give it a class name of rounded, which will be LG, border, and padding, which will be 3. Now inside of here I will create an h1, and let me give it a class name of text, which will be XL, and font, which will be semi-bold, and we will have a margin bottom of 5. And right here let me just give it a name of your opinion. So that looks good. If I go back right here, you right now see this border right here and this title with your opinion. And now under this h1 let me create a new div, and inside of here I will use the form. I will import that from Remix.run React. And now the form, that's interesting since we don't use the normal form as you know it, which looks something like that, but we use this custom form which we import from Remix. And the interesting thing with the form, if I go back to the Remix.run website and let me zoom in a bit, you will see that the form component is pretty much a declarative way to perform data mutations. So the interesting thing is if you pretty much mutate data, so you post data, once that data is posted, pretty much Remix will revalidate the data, and it pretty much will reload the loader, so we will get again fresh data. So that's the cool thing about form. We have this automatic mutations with revalidation that now, for example, next.js has added right now, but didn't have for a long time. So that's a very cool feature, and pretty much also, in my opinion, very underrated. And right here, let's give it a method, and the method will be in post. You could also do a get method, for example, but since I want to post data, I will do in post. And inside of this form, let me add a text area. And right here, let's give it a name first of all. It will just be comment. And let me delete this ID, calls and rows, since I won't need that. And then inside of this text area, let me give it also a class name of wfull, border, and we'll have a border, which will be teal 500. Then we'll also have a rounded, which will be LG, and padding, which will be 2. Now under this text area, let me also create an input, and this will be type of hidden, and the name will just be the ID, and the value will be the ID of pretty much the movie. So let me get it through the params. So what I will do is right here is just const, I will destructure the ID, and this will be equal to use params, which I import from Remix.run React. So let me give it right here the value, which will just be the ID. So that looks good. And the last thing I will have to create right here is the button, which will be the submit button. So let's do a button, and it will have the type, which will be just submit. And let me also give it a class name, which will be bg of teal 500. Padding x will be 4, padding y will be 2, rounded will be LG, and text will be white. So that looks good. And now under the form, what I want to do is also pretty much map over the data. So I will do a div, and now let me give it a class name of margin top 5, flex will be call, gap will be y of 3. And inside of here I would now map over the data, but right now I don't load that data. So let me first of all load that data. And to do that, I will again use the loader function. So let's do an export async function, which will be called loader. Inside of here, I will again use the loader args, which I import from Remix.run node, and let me open that function. Inside of here, let me also get the params. And now inside of here, I will do a const data, which will be equal to await db, and I import db from our utils folder, .comment.find many, And now I will have to use the where statement, since I only want the comments which were posted or which were created for a movie with the ID of the same ID of the movie. I think that was a bit complicated, but all I want to pretty much say is that I want to find the comments which pretty much match the ID of the movie. So what I will do right here is do an where, and we want to have the movie ID, which should be the same to params.id. And then another thing I want to do is an order by. So let me do order by created at, and I want it to be descending. So let's do that. Now the last thing I will have to do is return JSON. So let me do return JSON, which I import from Remix.run node, and let me pass the data. Now I will again have to get it in the front end. So I will again use loader data. So let's do a const data, which will be equal to use loader data. And that looks good. Now, if I hover over the data, you will see that data has no types. But we use Prisma, and Prisma is pretty much TypeScript, so you would think that we also have to get the types somehow. And Remix has a really cool thing for that. So right here, I will use a generic, which will be type of loader. And now if I delete this data and I use the structuring, and I will click on Control Spacebar, you will see that I get the type of data. So if I click that and now hover over data, you will now see that we pretty much get this data from Prisma. And that's really cool. It automatically tells us the types, so what type it is, string, and that it is an array. So that's really cool in my opinion, since we don't have to create any interfaces or anything, and it's pretty much already baked inside of Remix. So that looks good. And now what we can do is again map over our comments. So inside of this div, let me just do a data.map, and right here, let's do a post, and let me return that. And inside of here, let's do a div, let's give it a key, since I don't want any React errors. I will do a post.id, and inside of this div, let me use a p tag, and let's use a post.message. Now that looks good, and if I now go back to our website, localhost 3000, and reload it, you will first of all see we don't have any button. That's because I think I forgot to add any text. Yeah, I forgot that. So let's do an add comment. Let me do that. Let's save that. Let's go back. And that looks good. But you see we don't get any posts, and that's because we haven't created any posts. And right now, if I would just write something like here, let's do an hello from the Flash. And if I click on add comment, we get an error. And that's because we don't have an action. But what is an action? Well, we haven't used anything like that. So that's pretty much a question that you have. And that's pretty much the counterpart to the loader. So let me show it to you like that. We have a loader, and a loader is used to get something. So we pretty much use the form method get. But an action is pretty much the opposite. An action is there to manipulate data. So this could be in post, this could be in put, this could be in delete, anything that manipulates data and pretty much does not load data or get data. That's an action. And that's pretty much what we want to use. We want to use pretty much an action to add a comment, so to post data to our server or to our database in that sense. And the functionality is pretty much the same. So what you will have to do is again just create an export. Let me do it lowercase, an export async function. And the only difference to the loader is that it should be an action and not a loader. And inside of here, we can use the action args just right here, and we import that from Remix.run node, and we can just open the function. So that's all. It's pretty much the same to a loader. The only difference that exists is the name. We have the loader and we have the action. The loader is there to load data. The action is there to post data, to manipulate data. So I hope you understand that, since that's pretty much the base layer or the fundamental of Remix. And in my opinion, that's also pretty much one of the greatest things of Remix. So the loader, the action, and the form. That are, in my opinion, the greatest thing about Remix, and also the most powerful things of Remix. So yeah, and what I will want to do now, so let's come back to the original thing of the action, is to actually post the data, so to create a comment. And to do that, the first thing I will do is actually pretty much get the form data. So right here, let me get the request object. And now let me create a constant, which will have the name form data. And this will be equal to await request.form data. And this pretty much is there to get the form data or all the data inside of this form. And what I can do now is a const data, which will be equal to await db.comment.create. And then inside of here, let's use the data. And this will now have pretty much two fields we have to add, and that's the message. And we will have to also add the movie ID. So let me do that right here. And now for the message, all I will actually do is inform data dot get, and I want to get the comment. So as you know, right here we have created the name of comment, and with form data dot get, I pretty much get the value of this text area with the name comment. So, and then you right here see we get an error, and that's because message does not know that, or Prisma does not know that that's in string. So I will do an as string. And then for the movie ID, that's pretty much the same. I will again use inform data. Let me spell that correctly. Dot get, since I want to get one specific thing. And the specific thing I want to get is right here the ID. And that's also hidden, so the pretty much the user does not see it, but we can get it from the backend. So right here the name is ID, so I want to get the ID. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. And this will be again an as string to tell pretty much Prisma that that's a string. Now what I will have to do is the last thing is to return something, since that's always required. And I will just do a return JSON, and let me just return the data. Now that looks good, and I think we are actually done. If I now go back to our website, I will just add a comment. Let me just say hello from the Flash. Let me spell Flash correctly. I will now click on add comment, and now let's just see the magic. So let me click that, and now the magic has worked. We got our data. I mistakenly clicked add comment 2 times. That's why I got this comment 2 times. But I think that works perfectly. Now, right here, even though if I add something and click on add comment, you will see that still stays there. You can change that with an use effect, but I don't really want to mess with that right now. But that's an easy fix, and if you search on Google for a bit or just ask ChatGPT how to make that work, you'll find an answer for that. But that's pretty much all you need. But one thing I don't like, if I now click on here and add a text again, and if I click on add comment, I don't get any pending UI, so I don't get any loading or anything. So let's change that, because Remix again has a very handy function. And to make that work, it's pretty much a handy hook Remix has, which is called use navigation. So let's do a const navigation, which will be equal to use navigation. Not use navigate, but use navigation. And now that all we need to make pending UI work, and what I will just do right here is pretty much do an if statement. So let me just copy this button right here and do a navigation.state, and this should be equal to submitting. And if this is true, I will use ternary and return something, or if this is false, I will just return what I've copied, so the normal button. And now if it's loading, let me just paste again the button right here. Let me change the type to button. And also let me do an disabled, since I don't want the user to be able to click on the button again. And instead of add comment, let's just do an loading ... So I think that's all we need. If I now go back and let me just do an that's a great movie. And if I now click on add comment, you will now see our pending state, and we have that's a great movie. So that's pretty much all you need to know for actions. So we have the simple form, which we post. Then we have an action where we pretty much post server side to our database with Prisma. And then Remix pretty much revalidates the data on the background. So we don't have to do any refetching on ourselves. Remix just refetches the data on its own. And that's great. Also, we have added pending UI, so if the user clicks on the button, he gets the UX experience and he knows that he clicked the button and that it loads. And also, if I now click on any other movie, so let me click on Spider-Man, And if I add a comment right here now, hey, that's also a great movie. And now I will just click add comment. You will see we again got this pending UI and this message right here. So the great thing is we are finished, nested layout works, our whole application works, and you have probably got a lot smarter about Remix and how to make it work and how to use it. Now the last step has come, and that's to deploy to Vercel, since if you can remember, we used Vercel as a deployment target. So let's do that. And the first step we will have to do actually is to create a GitHub repo. So let's do that. So I went on github.com/new to create a new repository. Let me give it a name. So I will do a remix tutorial YouTube. And I will leave it public for you, so you can just come to this repository and check everything out. And let me click create repository. Now this will load for a bit, and now you will pretty much see the instructions to create a new GitHub repository, or not actually create a new GitHub repository, but to add our code to this GitHub repository. So let's do that. Let's go to our terminal, let me stop our server, and let me clear everything. Now inside of here, the first thing you will have to do is then git init, and this will initialize a Git repository. And the next step is to git add everything, and to add everything you have to do use a dot. And now let me click enter. And now the next step will actually be to commit our first message. So let me do that. And for the message, I will just do finished website. So let me do that. And now let me click enter. Now this has all been committed. Now if I go back, the next step is to create our branch. So let's do that, and I will just paste it inside of here. Then the next step is to add our remote origin. So I will again copy that and paste that inside of here. And then the last step is to push our code. So I will copy that and paste that again inside of here. Now this will push our code, and if I go back to GitHub and reload, you should now see our code right here with our commit message right here. So that's great, and now we can continue to Vercel. So I'm now on vercel.com, and to be more specific, I'm at vercel.com/new, and right here I can import my Git repository to start a new application. So right here, that's our repository, remix-tutorial-YouTube, and as you see, the last commit is from me 2 days ago, and that's because some time already has passed. But that's beside the point. What I can do now is click import, and right here you will now see our project name, our framework preset, and that looks all good. The only thing we will have to do actually is add the environment variable. So let me go back to my project right here, and let me open the .env file. Right here we have stored the database URL, so let me just copy it right here, and let me go back, and let me just paste it inside of here. Now that's all we need actually, so I can now click deploy. This will take a minute or so, so I will come back once that's finished. So the application has now been deployed to Vercel, and sadly Vercel is a bit buggy today, so I don't see the preview. So what I will do right now is just click on it, and this will redirect us to our application. And the first thing I see is that we have an error, and it tells me that the serverless function has crashed. Well, that's interesting since our dev environment worked perfectly. So let me check what the error is, and they tell us that if we are the owners, we can check out the logs. So let's actually do that. So let me open again the project inside of Vercel. So I have now opened the project right here in Vercel, and I will right here click on logs, and this should show me now logs, and I see, yeah, I have an error. So let me see what the error is. And it tells me undefined error. Prisma has detected that this project was built on Vercel, which caches dependencies. Okay, that's interesting. Let's see. We can fix it somehow. To fix it, make sure to run the Prisma generate command during the build process. Learn how on this link. So let me actually check that link out. Let's see what it tells us. So I have now opened that link. And right here we see, let me zoom in a bit so you can see that. And right here we'll see Vercel build dependency caching workaround. And we have this problem right here. And yeah, that's the message that I have. So let me see the solution right here. And as I see, the first one is a custom post install script. And that's also the preferred method as it's a universal solution. And all I have to do is right here paste this post install command inside of our scripts. So let me just copy that right here. Let me go back to our code and let me open the package.json. And now inside of the scripts right here, let me just paste that under the type check. So that looks good. And now I have to push it to GitHub again. So what I will do is just again in git add everything, so with a dot. Then I will do in git commit -m, and the message will be just fixed Prisma deployment, so we know that. And let me click enter. Now what I will have to do is git push, so let me write git push. And now our code is being pretty much pushed to GitHub. And if I now go back to our Vestal dashboard and on project, and we will see right here that our project now builds again since we have pushed our code to GitHub. If I now click on that, so right here, you will see right here our building step or how long it will still take. So let me just come back once that's redeployed again. So about 10 seconds later, our project has been redeployed. So what I can do right now is just click on our top trending movies right here and we get redirected to the working website. So that looks good. Now let me test out if everything works. So I will click on a movie. Let's just again click on the flash. We will see that the redirect is again almost instant since we use the prefetch inside of the link component. We have our comments right here. Let me test out if that works. So what I will write is just, hey, from the production website. And now let me click add comment. This will load. And right here we'll see the message, hey, from the production website. So that looks good. Let me click on our logo again. We get redirected and it's again almost instant. Let me click on John Wick. Right here that's also instant. Let me write a message, hey, again. And let me click add comment, and this also works perfectly. So our project is done and everything works just as it should. And now we can actually continue with our day. So enjoy your day and bye.